Hi, my name is Mason and I work for Comet Backup here in New Zealand. Welcome along to another Technical Highlights webinar. This is episode 19. During these videos, I usually talk for about half an hour on some Comet topics, best practice tips, IT industry news. I give one of these Comet technical presentations every month, and on the webinar platform, you can sign up for notifications about when we go live. And I am coming to you live today. It's 9 a.m. Here in New Zealand, and the COVID regulations do allow me to be in the office today. If you're viewing this live on our webinar platform, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a chat widget, or maybe you have to click the sidebar button at the bottom of the screen to enable it. And you'll see a panel with chat and questions tabs. Feel free to pop in any questions that you have, anything that springs to mind, any clarifications, anything you want answered, just write it in. They'll be sent privately to me, and then at the end of my presentation, I'll have a few minutes to look over them and do my best to answer any questions that you might have. After the live presentation, this webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so that's another way you can catch up. If you miss the live time slot, then I'm afraid you miss out on the live question and answer sessions. That's a special benefit for being able to make the time slot, but of course, questions are welcome anytime in the support tickets. So I do these every month. Just to quickly recap what happened last month, back in the previous episode, I talked about Office 365, the ability to preview a backed up email from inside the web restore dialog, just really expanding out the remote control web feature set so it more closely matches the desktop feature set. I also talked about MySQL and the new SSL connection options feature, and how and why this is a much better idea than the old MySQL dump arguments field. I talked about the easy button to export all your Comet server logs. That's really, the support team really appreciate that one. I talked about what actually needs to happen when you cancel a Comet backup job, and the improvements we've made recently to make cancellation even better. I talked about device registration, the new column for keeping track of that directly within Comet server without having to go out to the billing system at account.cometbackup.com. I went into a lot of background information about retention policies, just to build up to the new quality of life feature here to show the info tooltip. And expanded Collect D metrics. So a quick plug for our Collect D integration. It's just one of many programs that you can use to help monitor your server fleet. And so we've got this plugin for Collect D that lets it pick up on some Comet specific information as well. And last month we had expanded its capabilities in that area to monitor more things. So that was last month. And if you're interested in learning anything more about those topics, the previous webinar is available to watch again on our YouTube channel. So that was last time. This month's webinar, it's been another pretty full month. If you look at the changelogs on our website, almost every single release has had a great big changelog full of fixes and enhancements. So there's been lots of exciting new development recently that I can tell you about. Like I said, this is episode 19. Comet has been around for a few years at this point, and we're still coming up with new ideas and breaking ground on a lot of really exciting features. I know all your MSPs, service providers, IT companies are very busy people, so let's just get started. 21.11 Himalia. We are constantly working on improving Comet, and we release new software updates every week on our Voyager branch. But updating every week is not for everyone. Many people prefer more battle-tested point releases with a longer support life cycle, and for that we have our quarterly releases. And would you look at that? It's that time again. Every 3 months we take all of our recent Voyager development and roll it up into a new long-term support branch that we can maintain with just targeted bug fixes and ticket support only. So if you've been following the weekly Voyager releases and you've been waiting for a chance to drop down to the quarterlies, here's a nice opportunity to do it. And of course, you're welcome to jump back up to Voyager if you need the latest and greatest features at any time. It's easy to upgrade. Just download and run the Comet server installer again, and it will sort everything out and your services will be back up and running in no time at all. As for Himalia itself, it is named after one of Jupiter's moons. So this photo was taken by the Cassini spacecraft back in the year 2000. We codename all of our quarterly releases after space objects. We started with Mercury a few years ago now, and we've been following the Voyager spacecraft further outward into the solar system. And we've recently, over the last few quarters, we've done all the famous moons of Jupiter, you know, Io, Callisto, and so on. But Jupiter has 80 moons, so we've got a good stack of code names here for a while. The moon Himalia orbits Jupiter. It was discovered in 1904, so feels pretty recent, actually. Although it's been known for a bit over 100 years, it was actually only given the name Himalia in 1975. And despite being called Himalia, the name is actually a woman from ancient Greek mythology. Himalia was a nymph who had children with Zeus. Although I think if you read much Greek mythology, you'll find children of Zeus everywhere. Most of Jupiter's minor moons like this are actually named after women closely associated with Zeus because Zeus is the same person as the Roman god Jupiter. So that's where the code name comes from. I'll also explain the version number as well, 21 because it's 2021, and 11 because it's November. Himalia will be released at the end of November. It's looking like Monday 29th at this stage. And like I said, it contains all the changes from the last 3 months worth of Voyager releases. So if you watch my last 2 monthly webinars, you'll be familiar with those changes, but that's only 2/3 of them. I better move on and tell you what else we've done this month that's going to be in Himalia 2, starting with the obligatory status update on the Office 365 development project. We have a brand new user interface for selecting Office 365 accounts for backup. Now, I know most of you will just tick the backup entire organization checkbox and not really think twice about the details, but the details are now really good. So this interface looks just like a part of Comet. You can pick and choose, just checkbox for accounts, groups, sites, drives. All of the Office 365 resources that Comet understands they're just visible here for you to pick and choose from. There is a lot to take in here. I'll just let your eyes wander over it for a bit while I sip my coffee. So this is a screenshot of one of our sandbox test environments. So these aren't real people's names. I would like to just go through a few points. The first of which is that there are fewer dialogues. We used to have 3 pop-up windows here to pick and choose what services you wanted. It's now all shown on the main screen, so it's much simpler to pick and choose what you want. There is also a clearer overview. You can see these icons on the right-hand side show you that, for Adele Vance here at the top, we're backing up her calendar, contacts, mail, SharePoint, OneDrive. And we've gone into showing all of this detail because all of that detail is customizable right down to the individual service level. So if you click the edit button or if you double click on a single row, you get this pop-up, which allows you to fine-tune the services for a single account. So maybe you want to back up SharePoint but not OneDrive, or vice versa. Maybe this person shouldn't have their mail backed up, but their contacts are important. It's whatever situation you find yourself in, it's all very easy and visible. And once you click OK on this small dialog, the visual indicators up here on the right will effectively show you what will be backed up. So it's great to be able to see this at a glance, and it matches up with the summary total figures at the bottom of this pane. So that's the basics of the new interface. However, it does pack a punch in some more hidden ways. So I'm going to dive in a little deeper. Group members. So some of these entries in this list here are groups. And in Office 365, you can create a group through Outlook or through Teams or through Azure AD or in several other ways. And it may or may not have various services attached to it itself. And in particular, this is helpful if you're backing up a group's members. So one of the entries in here is inside the service pop-up dialog is labeled members. So if you want to back up all the mailboxes belonging to members of this group, just checkbox the group or bring up this dialog and checkbox the member mailboxes. And once you hit OK, you'll see back out on the main screen, the mailbox icon will light up for all the users of that group. So as well as that, there's also search and filter by both name or by type. It's probably a good idea to organize your backup selection by groups, and then this filter bar is actually how you get to the group view and find all the groups within that Office tenant. Or if you're looking for a single mailbox account, this screenshot is from a quite small Office organization, only 21 protected accounts. We've heard of much bigger customers with 10,000 or more mailboxes in a single organization, and that's when the search by name bar becomes very helpful. It instantly filters as you type, so it's highly responsive to changes. And for those bulk edit, for those really large organizations, I would generally advise selecting backup my entire organization or searching by groups and backing up whole groups for backup. But if you do want to pick and choose individual accounts, it's possible to shift or control click or drag select multiple accounts in this list. Then when you click edit, you will get a bulk edit, a combined service dialog that allows you to select all mailboxes for every user account selected. And of course, this new user interface is also available via the web, so you can remotely configure your Office backup selection. One common use case we've seen is for an MSP, the kind of MSP who is directly responsible for, if they're the CSP or reselling Office 365, and they're also operating a Comet backup for it. In that case, you can run Comet on a few servers and just operate it yourself on behalf of those directly managed tenants. And so the web interface is a really neat way to remotely configure that. So that's it, brand new Office 365 selection interface. Hope you like it. I hope you find it a bit better than the old one. I've shown you a lot of the complex features for it, but actually using it is very intuitive. Just click what you want to back up or click everything. Quick find, quick edit for advanced selection. Most of the time you're just going to back up the entire organization anyway. I'm just going to put those screenshots away for a minute because as well as the user interface redesign here, just talking about Office 365 as a whole, there has been a continued focus on improving our support as we head towards the Himalia release. Some of the things I'd like to highlight over the last month include speed improvements for SharePoint sites, OneDrive, and Exchange Online mailboxes by tuning what work we can do in parallel. And our parallelism has led to important and notable speed ups, both for the initial full backup job and for follow-up incremental backup jobs. So if you're using Office 365 backup on the Voyager branch, these speed improvements landed in 21.9.11 and 21.9.12, so quite recently over the last few weeks. I would definitely recommend with Office 365 that you use the latest releases as we are making big strides here to improve the backup job speed. And as well as new selection UI, faster backup speed, and as well as that, we've also resolved a number of minor issues. If you've been seeing ghost accounts show up in the account picker, that's fixed. If you've been seeing missing file timestamps in the restore dialog, that's fixed. A lot of errors are resolved, timeout problems. It's looking in great shape as we head towards the quarterly release. Enough about Office. Let's talk about something else. Comet is now available in both the Thai and Danish languages. And this brings Comet up to 13 supported languages, 13 if you include English. And so a big thank you to our incredible, generous, intelligent and bilingual MSP partners who actually contributed these translations themselves. They've done a wonderful job. I'm sure their own customers will appreciate being able to use the software and look at the job reports in their native languages. So a quick reminder that if you speak another language that Comet doesn't support, or if you found a typo or a problem in one of our existing language translations, we've got all of our text files publicly available on GitHub. Just head to github.com/cometbackup/translations and you can see all of our text files. We can all work together on improving them. It's easy to download the files and make changes. They're just plain text files. You don't have to use any special software, although there is special software for it. And then we can accept changes via the support ticket system or account.cometbackup.com. If you're a real GitHub expert, then send us a pull request. We're happy to make it worth your while. We love getting new translations. It's a great way to help Comet fit in better with your local country, the local language. And so Thai and Danish are now available in the 21.9 Voyager series, and they will be part of the long-term support Himalia release next week too. Some quick fun facts. The Danish language, spoken by approximately 11 million people, half inside Denmark and half out of it. If you're thinking of learning a European language as a second language, then Danish is actually one of the most accessible choices because the grammar is a bit simpler. The Thai language is spoken by an estimated 60 million people in Thailand, obviously, but also Malaysia, Cambodia, Myanmar, and around the world. Within Comet, Thai is the first language we have that doesn't use spaces. So that's been a really fascinating and enlightening challenge for us in ensuring the app still flows properly, resizes properly, and does line breaks, even when there are no spaces. But anyways, if you don't speak Thai or Danish, then maybe I can tell you about a different feature. Comet now has some improved support for command line control. This has been something that's been a feature request for Comet for a while. There's been a long-standing request in our public feature voting page for improved control here. In the latest Comet Voyager releases, we've taken the first steps towards that, with a particular view to what I think is the biggest pain point, which is about the login and password control, particularly on Linux, where it is technically possible to run the desktop interface, but usually we're talking about Linux servers with SSH where you only get a command line. And so once Comet Backup is up and running and logged in, you can configure all your Linux backup settings via the Comet server web interface, even logging in as an end user, but it's just that initial login and password control step that if you get stuck there, you've got a pretty limited set of tools to get out. So this new feature works on Linux, but also on Windows too. I'll show a Windows screenshot, to be fair. So you open command prompt, or PowerShell, or Bash, or ZSH, or whatever, and CD into Comet's install directory, and then you run backup tool login status, and it tells you if Comet is logged in or not, or if it's unregistered, or if it can't reach the Comet server, and then you run backup tool login prompt, and you get a command line login dialog. And this lets you troubleshoot most types of login failure without needing the desktop interface. Maybe this device has changed hardware and gone unregistered, or maybe there's been a network issue reaching the Comet server. In the past, when people have had login trouble on Linux, we've basically suggested uninstall and reinstall. Then you'll get the login prompt again. But now it's much easier. You can just run this single command. And of course, there's more information in the documentation. While working on this feature, we also made some other improvements to the command line login experience, enhancing it in a few other important ways too. It now properly enforces the require to change password on first login feature. So you will now be asked to enter a new changed password directly on the Linux command prompt. And it also now properly handles the case if you have two-factor authentication with TOTP enabled for your user account. So in the past, this just didn't work on Linux, but now you will get a command line prompt for your 6-digit two-factor code before you are able to register the Linux device into your account, all seamlessly available on your Linux SSH or Windows Server Core, Windows with your RMM if you have one. It's the kind of feature that will definitely come in handy one day for you, but in the common case, I guess you shouldn't run into this situation at all. So that is command line usage. Next on my list of things to talk about is Comet is that rare kind of software that gets faster with updates, not slower. And today there are 3 interesting speed improvements I'd like to highlight that have all shipped already in Voyager over the past month and will be in the 21.11 Himalia release next week. The first one is in the desktop app regarding the add protected item dialog. I don't know if you've ever seen this add protected item button be a bit weirdly slow to open sometimes. If you have a fast PC, it can be pretty snappy, but I know that all the MSPs and service providers out there, most people do not have the latest, 12th Gen i7. So we've all seen this as a bit of a strange hotspot on some slower PCs, and when we're helping out on support calls, we put a bit of time and effort into it, and I'm pleased to report that in my testing it is now 4 times faster to open this dialog window. And that is actually a noticeable difference. If you haven't felt the slowness, then great, ideal. And now you definitely won't feel it in the future either. So just a nice small improvement there for your everyday usage of the Comet Backup desktop app. The next notable speed improvement is with re-index jobs. They are just faster, full stop, especially for Wasabi and Backblaze B2 and S3 compatible destinations. We're just reading through the code and spotted a case where we were making a lot more network round trips than were really necessary to the storage location. And so with a bit of refactoring, restructuring of that code logic, it was actually easy to bring up the speeds on that. This also improves the deep verify pass, but generally speaking, the re-index job is something that you are more likely to encounter. And the third speed improvement worth mentioning today is in the Comet server's job history screens. Comet server keeps a database file of all the job logs for all the customers. You've probably seen the comet-jobs.db3 file. And when you go to browse job logs, you're usually not interested in seeing every single one. I think the most common things to do are find all jobs in the last 10 days. That's what the recent activity page does. Or all jobs for a single user as in the screenshot, when you go actions, view job history, to figure out what's going on there. And it's this case that is now substantially faster. We've indexed the database file by username. So if you're looking up jobs for a single user within a large Comet server, we do see a significant speed up on that. In one test on a Comet hosted server that we operate, a job lookup went from 2.5 seconds down to 0.09 seconds, which we are very pleased with. And on top of that, we have also implemented what's called a lowering pass, so that if you make a really complex custom search query, we will try and analyze that to see if it can make use of this new index. And so this is particularly helpful, for instance, when a Comet backup job runs and you've enabled the skip if already running checkbox. In some situations, Comet can figure out the already running part itself, but in some situations it has to reach out to the Comet server to check for other running jobs for that same protected item. It makes a complex search query that looks a little bit like this. And so having this lowering pass on our search data structure that can be compiled into something matching an SQL column index is great for performance in general. So that is faster dialog opens in the desktop app, faster reindex operations, faster job history lookups. All of this is available in Voyager today and will be in the 21.11 Himalia release next Monday. Last thing I want to quickly mention today are some tweaks for creating new user accounts. That's this dialog here that administrators see in the Comet server web interface. First of all, in the past, a username had to be six characters long. We've dropped that restriction down to 1. So you can create user accounts with really short usernames. If you have customers named Bob, Jim, Eve, Tim, Anna, Zach, it will just work. This is particularly helpful if you are using the LDAP integration with Comet Server to integrate usernames from other systems. If you had short usernames in your other system and now syncing them into Comet with LDAP will now work more smoothly. Now, just be aware that if you start doing this and you have a replica server that's still running an old version of Comet Server, then it won't understand these new short names. So if you're using auth role replication, just make sure both your primary and your replica server are up to date before trying to use this feature. There are 2 other changes I would like to highlight on this dialog, both related to how it interacts with your chosen policy. That's the apply policy drop-down option here near the bottom. To start with, talking about exactly how it interacts with the allow administrator to reset my password checkbox that's right below it. Now this looks like a checkbox, just a simple on/off, but under the hood there's actually some pretty serious cryptography going on as to whether or not a password reset is even possible. You know, it's generating a recovery code, and when you're going to create a new user, there's this checkbox, but there's also the default policy dropdown, and inside the policy you can declare the same allow administrator to reset my password setting in there too. And so these 2 settings can potentially be in conflict with each other. And this caused a problem recently, and so what we've done here is to update this checkbox on this dialog to load its value from the policy. So if you're turning this checkbox on or off in the policy, then by default this add user dialog will match that. The other change is to do with the request first storage vault option. Just taking a step backwards to look at the big picture here, the way this whole account creation process works at an API level is that it has to create the user account, load the user account, and then change its email settings, apply the policy, request the storage vault, and there's actually separate steps that happen in a certain order. With the storage vault requesting, there is a possible conflict with the policy setting. One of the things you can do with the policy is to restrict the types of storage vault. So it's possible that applying the policy before creating the vault could put the account in a policy invalid state, but vice versa. The policy can also declare what the default retention policies for all new storage vaults should be. So maybe it's more important to set the policy first before creating the vault after all. And over the course of this Voyager cycle, we've weighed up the pros and cons of both orderings and decided to swap it around. It means that the default retention policy will now be properly applied in more cases. Overall, this is a pretty subtle change. I think it can be summarized quite simply as Comet now does the right thing in more cases. We let you use more usernames and we take more of your preferences into account. So just making Comet better and better. That's all I have for today. Are there any questions? Just to recap, I talked about Office 365, the ability to preview a backed up email from inside the Web Restore dialog. I talked about, sorry, no, that's last month. What did I talk about today? I talked about 21.11 Himalia, our upcoming quarterly release with the long-term support. I talked about Office 365, the new user interface for easy selection, and the other performance and issue resolved with Office 365. Talked about the new Thai and Danish translations and how you can help out with updating translations if you speak another language. I talked about the new command line control, command line access for Comet backup. So you can type backup tool space login slash prompt and adjust your login and password control by Linux SSH or on Windows Server Core. I talked about the speed improvements, faster add protected item dialogues, faster re-index jobs, I think is quite a big deal, and faster job search history lookups. And I talked about usernames that can now be shorter and some updates to the policy rules around how exactly those things are applied. I'll just give it another few seconds for questions. I did see someone posted the little emoji reaction to the Office interface, so thank you for that. That's very positive feedback for us. No questions, no questions. Okay, that's fine. Questions are always welcome. If we still want to hear from you, if you have any questions at all, we're always happy to help out. We're always happy to hear your questions by ticket through the usual ticket system at account.cometbackup.com, or you can email us using hello@cometbackup.com. Or did you know that we do support phone calls? Our company is based in New Zealand. We do have international support teams for round-the-clock level 1 technical support. But if you want a sales call or any more advanced technical support or troubleshooting, we'll need to figure out a good time that suits both us and New Zealand. UTC plus 13, we've gone into summer down here in the Southern Hemisphere, and also matching that time up with your country. So it makes scheduling a little bit complicated, but all you have to do is go to the Comet website. At the bottom of the page, you click Contact Us. There's an option to schedule a phone call with the time zone widget showing our available times, and it'll just work everything out for you. We're more than happy to jump on a call, and often that's a very quick way of clearing the air and getting answers to any questions you might have. So that's all from me. Hopefully you've managed to take away some useful information. Of course, as we're approaching the end of the year, we will have a bit fewer development staff available over the holiday season. I think both the development team and probably all of you watching this video will appreciate other things going on your mind. But of course, we will still be around to answer support tickets and do phone calls. So please check out the latest version of Comet 21.11 Himalia. Hope you're all keeping well and safe. And the webinar series will resume in late January for episode 20. Cheers.